Welcome to Slow Unpacking, where we unpack magic but take our sweet time with it. Our second pack from Throne of Eldraine. Last time we learned more about the goblins here and about some of the kingdoms. Let's see what we have here. Bloodhaze Wolverine by Evan Shipard. Flavor: build a moat. If we're lucky, it can swing. Sir Brannigan, Knight of Ardenville. Eldraine seems to be all about aggressive wolf-like creatures, although Wolverines look more like the smaller bears or dogs, like you see here. Although here too you might not have to be afraid really, as these Wolverines are mostly nocturnal animals. Apparently this one hunts in daylight though, and the moat will not help because Wolverines can definitely swim. Dwarven Mine by Alexander Forssberg. Ah yes, Dwarven Mine from Alexander is a great art and definitely my third favorite art from this pack. The beautiful red gems in this mountain and just the real feeling of all this. When you think about dwarves that are mining, you might think about Snow White, but you can now also think about Discard, where dark fumes and fires of Invention are all around and you can almost smell the sweat from these dwarves. Dwarves might just be 1/1s, but they are definitely hardy creatures by living in this mine. Memory Theft by Micah Epstein. Flavor: in the wild, the ravens steal far more than baubles. Oh yeah, a beautiful card here, where the art is almost contextual. But then we learn from the flavor that ravens actually steal your memory here. I must say that Micah made my second favorite art with this card. Just because of the reality of the armor, and then the face of this oh so good knight that we cannot see. This might be an honored knight, but he has learned to never enter the wilds. Stay home. Also amazing that this card also makes the opponent discard an adventure. That might be because your knight never returned, or because you have forgotten about the feats your adventure creature has done, which is a great flavor too. Henge by Titus Lunter. Flavor: everything that inhabits Garenbrig is affected by the wild magic flowing through the Great Henge. This is a play on planeswalkers. This Henge is strong enough to explore the wilds, so this one can traverse through the portal of the Great Henge. Also, if you want to choose your destination, you have to move giant boulders on the Great Henge. So there are golems and giants needed for that too. Apparently the Great Henge makes creatures stronger, so even this golem, that might have started out small, was grown into a huge walker. Look at the bird too. This is a bird that lets you know how big the golem is exactly. This one is probably 5 meters or so. So there will be bigger people in Garenbrig, because there are giants that live there. Smitten Swordmaster by Taylor Ingvarsson. Flavor: my quest? Why, to marry Ayara or die trying. Probably die trying. No knight has ever returned from this particular quest, and the reason for that is that you will all be sacrificed for Ayara's immortality. We have figured this out last time. Ayara just keeps sending her knights on quests and then they disappear after a year. Meanwhile, her priests all feel sorry for the knights. So much for chivalry. In this kingdom, chivalry is dead because all of the knights that are chivalrous are now dead. He has even killed another being, so he might be worthy for the cauldron. Brimstone Trebuchet by Yeong-Hao. This trebuchet is controlled by knights, so whenever one enters the battlefield, this trebuchet can deal damage again. This card single-handedly made red drafters a little slower, as this was a fine inclusion in most of these decks, and staying back was often fine with this. Definitely a great example of a red defender, one that deals damage to keep the red mages content. I do not really think that the Knights of Embereth would use this. They value courage, and what is courageous about staying behind your walls? Well, I guess that you can still be smart and courageous. Bartered Cow by Deruchenko Alexander. Flavor: at the market no one heeded Hilda's frantic mooing. The Fey curse was turning out even worse than she had feared. Always be careful what you wish for with the fairies of Eldraine. These are tricksters that always want to outsmart you. So when Hilda wanted some more food, this fairy turned her into some. Now this little kid is selling their own mother, and when she is sold, she will be turned into food. So yeah, great fairy tale and a really great nod towards the older fairy tales that were just as dark. Fierce Witchstalker by Nicholas Gregory. Flavor: while the realm has laws, in the wild there are other ways of balancing power. Last time in Eldraine we saw a wicked wolf that we noted was not always as aggressive as it is portrayed in the fairy tales. Still, wolves do have a lot of uses in Eldraine too, namely to eat some witches. Perhaps these wolves here are not so bad, and maybe they are just hunters of evil. Perhaps these wolves are actually the heroes here. This one does not even eat food, it just makes it for you. Perhaps this one is a pet from someone from Garenbrig that goes out to hunt for him. Maybe this is just one of these pets that bring you weird presents. This could all be true. Witching Well by John Avon. Flavor: it was built by the Witch of Lockmere. Most of the wishes it grants are its own. Of course, a play on the Wishing Well. This one is a well that takes your wish and grants it when it gets something from it for itself. In the background you can see Loch Twain and a troll walking there, but I am not sure what the troll does. Wells are significant in Eldraine. They have housed King Kenriff's magic sword, and they have told the twin Will and Kenriff that the stag had to die in order for their father to return. This witching well might just be a savior too. Or it might just be a lesser version of the magic mirror that also lies beneath Lockmere. This well might know more than you think. Malevolent Noble by Randy Vargas. Flavor: he has slain a dozen witches, luring each with the promise of fresh children's bones. Here we see Malevolent Noble for the second time. Its design is rather simple, but I want to touch on a little other thing, namely witches. Even with fantasy, but definitely with fairy tales, you always have to look at real life. Witches were hot topic between the 1400s and 1600s. They were mostly women persecuted for apparently having dealt with the devil. Now actual witches practice the motto of never harming anyone. They often are busy with eradicating evil actually. So back to this story. We might have to rethink witches sometimes. Magic only sees witches as evil up to today. The birth mother of Will and Rowan was a witch, and she does not necessarily have to be evil. I think Eldraine has a lot to deal with for the coming years. Belle of the Brawl by Magali Villeneuve. Flavor: Loch Twain knights take pride in being the last ones standing in a fight or on a dance floor. Hello? I have never noticed how awesome this card was before, but the art is amazing. Look at how heroic and determined Belle is here. But also what a way of depicting a female knight. Now, I have not even looked at this card really properly, because Belle might not even be in battle in this art. She might just be rushing towards a big party here, because, like we have learned now, the parties of Loch Twain can go for hours upon days before everyone gives up. Magali Villeneuve is definitely one of the best artists for characters and is definitely making my favorite art in this particular pack. We have seen massive barriers from her and beautiful strands of faith, but now we see her real strength, which is giving a character a vibe without us feeling alone with the character. We can imagine all kinds of stories around this. You could too. Slaying Fire by Heonhwa Choe. Flavor: the purest virtue burns brighter than the sun and hotter than dragon fire. Red often gets its virtues and values mixed up with fire. Now here we see how passion can really be a virtue sometimes. The people of Embereth value courage mostly, and then romance after. Perhaps this knight might be saving a loved one even. And as more emotion is poured into this fire, it gets stronger too. Not much, but it might just be enough. The adamant red cards in the set often make a spell deal more damage, which is of course very rad, but also more legit than in other cases, as emotions can really hurt in multiple ways. Mad Rather by Johann Bodin. Flavor: gather round and tell me all from the courts and castles. Now this is a card that is of course based on the fairy tale of the Ratter, which is a story about a rat catcher that lured rats in a river as he was promised money. But the village that he saved, refuses to pay him, so he lures the villagers into the same river and the whole village drowns. Now this one misses the teaching that the fairy tales are supposed to have. This one just uses his rats to gather knowledge of the city and then supposedly does something with it. People think he is crazy though, so perhaps there is another learning. The original story taught us to always pay out our promises. This one tells us to not just think someone is crazy and then forget about them. There might be a truth in any person's rambling, so stop calling me crazy, okay? Fires of Invention by Stanton Feng. Flavor, just tell us how many you want and get out of the way. Just tell them how many you want and just please let them do their thing. They will give whatever you want in quantities of maximum of 2 and only on your turn. This pack seems to tell us everything about how to be a polite client. Always pay your dues and politely wait for the Dwarven smith to make your product. Don't complain if it is a little later than you expected, they are working on it. Also, give these dwarves the space too. You need to give them the land in order to actually cast your spells. And now stop telling us to give ramp to red, okay? Mountain by Josu Her Knights. Lands from Throne of Eldraine come in 2 flavors. Either they are about their kingdom or they are about the wilds. This one is showing us a piece of the wilds, which is seemingly a really dark place that probably no one wants to enter. Look at how foreboding this is. This reminds me of all the times I was riding my bike in utter darkness for hours to get home from a party. Oh, I miss those. But okay. I was always most afraid of the trees on the side. There might be someone behind those. I am still alive though, and though I do suspect if you would take this particular route, you would not be as fortunate. Food Token by Donato Giancola. Ah yeah, the cookies that your grandma makes you. But this basket fell over and has a red cape under it and a wolf is standing next to it. If you think about famous fairy tales, you might know what this one is about. Now why has this tale not been made into a popular newer movie? Because being afraid of the dark is not cool anymore. Though there are more lessons to be had in the original story and a little bit more dark than you might think. This was a story about menstruation, actually. Hence the Red Hood. In the actual story, Red Riding Hood was told to eat the food from the stove and then to lie down with her grandmother. She did so, and after discovering that her grandmother was a wolf, she was told that she had just eaten her grandmother. The story was meant to teach girls to never trust someone, ever, making this a sadly actual story, where wolves are still not dangerous, but humans could be very dangerous. Hey, a little bit of a downer at the end, but I had to tell it because this food token was too actual. But thank you for watching this video or skipping to the rares. You know, I try to keep the structure of the packs intact, because I personally believe these comments can be really cool to look at, but you do you. I will not force you, I will just try to convince you.